If you think about, single sport venues, and he and Mr. Kaufman put these two buildings out here at the time, very, very innovative to put single sport venues side by side in the same place. And this stadium and Arrowhead has served both of these franchises greatly. In fact, it's still a beautiful place to play, and I'll talk about kind of our process here. But the other thing that's changed, I think, for baseball, this could end up being a good long-term home for the Chiefs. I know they have a process going on right now, but a lot of things have changed for baseball. And it, among other things, we have an aging fan base. The nation's demographic shift is causing us to take more interest in a younger and more diverse audience. And creating a ballpark experience in a more urban environment is just one thing that there are lots of things related to attracting younger, more diverse audience to baseball. It's how they consume the game, how we deliver our content to them, the socially varied experience we might give them in a ballpark, and then in a downtown ballpark. Certainly, it's I hate to. Everybody says, where are you going to put the stadium?
Well, that was my next question.
Well, but I think to clarify, it's really stadium's the wrong term. This is about creating a ballpark district and all that comes with it, and a ballpark experience, and that it certainly we feel like that will touch. It will create a lot of jobs, both to build the building, but then also longer term. We think it will attract. Mixed income housing, corporate offices, a place where people live, work, and play, public transportation, and really a gathering place for our community, but also a place where we'll have significant economic and social impact on the community.
So do you anticipate kind of a Kansas City Live or a power and light district associated with this facility like they've done in some other cities? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the residual effect of building a downtown baseball stadium, just what happens naturally?
Kind of depending upon where you put it, you may have to create your own entertainment. I think about Atlanta. We visited the Atlanta Braves. They've done a great job in the Battery there. I don't know if anybody's been there, but they actually moved from the central business district to kind of a close-in suburb, but they built a whole community, restaurants, bars, office, hotels, and then the stadium. And then last year, they won the World Series. That helps. But they attracted 2.6 million people to the stadium and inside the ballpark, and 10 million visitors to the Battery. So that's a little bit different. Now, if we pick a spot where we got to create all that and do all of that development, we're certainly willing to do that. But we may end up being a complement to Power and Light, and really enhance what's already there, and maybe expand the entertainment district, but also be close enough that it would actually expand the investments that are already made.
So if you read the paper, you hear two things. One is, and if you believe the paper, you hear two things, which is, one, there's an anticipation that it could be near 18th and Vine, or that it could be in the downtown loop. And my second question is, if you believe and read the paper, that they're also saying that you're a lot further along in this process than what was originally anticipated.
Well, to answer the site question, there are more sites than what we're evaluating multiple sites. Those might be two of them, I don't know. But when you think about are we further along, we have a team working on this. We have a very serious and diligent and deliberate and what will be a transparent process to evaluate. And one of the first things we're doing, just like the Chiefs, we've got a study underway right now with an architectural and an engineering firm to evaluate what it would cost to renovate Kauffman Stadium. To renovate it, extend its life for 30 years, but then also to modernize it for the current fan experience. The Chiefs are doing that same thing, and other cities have done that, and this is not. I mean, I don't think people quite get yet how expensive doing something like that right here. So that's part of the evaluation process. When people say we're moving quicker than they expect. Somebody, I noticed in the paper, they said we wanted to be downtown by 2026.
Yeah,
I don't know where they got that,
okay.
but if the stars align, we'd be certainly willing to go down there by 2026.
And
But,
move before the lease is over?
yeah, there's a lot to be worked out. We're working closely with the chiefs. They've got their process. I do think that, if this is what's gonna happen, I think doing it sooner rather than later would be beneficial, not only to the community, but also to what the chiefs wanna do out here as
Mhm.
well.
Well,
So
you-
certainly before the end of the lease, but a lot has to be worked out, including, going to the taxpayers.
That's exactly right. And so having a study here is really prudent so that the taxpayers can understand the differences between the two. Because I know that polls have shown that taxpayers aren't necessarily fully on board. Are you concerned about that? And what about the mayor? I know he's given you a interesting answer.
Well, the mayor, we've spent a lot of time with the mayor, and I would tell you that all of the things that I think this project will do for Kansas City are the things that he supports. He supports growth, he wants jobs, he wants a stronger central business district. And so I think, the mayor, you're gonna have to ask the mayor what he thinks about this, relative to being public about it. But we're talking to the mayor, we're talking to Jackson County, both the executive and the legislators. And so we're having a lot of those conversations. As it relates to the voters, I think this is an education process. We do have access to some polling that's mixed. I walk around the ballpark too and ask people, usually they ask me, are we going downtown? I said, what do you think, right? And I get a mixed answer, But, part of what we're dealing with here is nostalgia. I think you blew my cover. I had my first date with my wife out here in the late 70s, and it was a Yankees game. And I was here in 80, 85. I was here in 14, 15, and all those years in between. So this is a place where a lot of people in Kansas City have great memories with their families. But I would tell you, we're not walking away from those memories. We're not walking away from our history. We're going to bring that with us wherever we play.
Well, and there's so much, I know that you believe there's so much public benefit to moving a business that does, 90 nights of business a year to a downtown area. I mean, we've seen what's happened to Baltimore, we've seen what's happened to Washington DC, we've seen what's happened to Denver. I mean, 20 years ago, you didn't want to go downtown Denver. Now, it's completely a brand new city.
Right.
So I know that's what you're anticipating could happen here.
Right, San Diego, I mean, it's like I said, the ballpark district and all that comes with it, it's certainly much more.
So tell us about your neighbor, the Chiefs. What have they told you?
Well, we're talking with them. I think what they've told us is what they've talked about publicly, that they love Arrowhead Stadium. Arrowhead Stadium is special to them. Those were Mark Donovan's words at the downtown council meeting, and it's special to their fans. And so they're doing the same thing we are. They're evaluating what it would cost to extend the life of Arrowhead and renovate it. They're also, depending upon what they find out there, they'll evaluate building a new building out here, and they've stated a willingness to look other places as well.
But one thing that wouldn't happen is doing it both at the same time, moving. If perhaps both franchises decided to move. The Royals might go first, the Chiefs might go second, something like that?
I think it's, I think, and Mark also said in the downtown council, that if we moved early, that may help them with some of their thoughts. And I don't want to speak for them on this, what they might do out here. So I do think that we could help the community by kind of resequencing. The great thing I just talked about, the innovative partnership that Lamar Hunt and Ewing Kaufman, the good thing about it is that it took care of these franchises for 50 years, and it kept them here thriving and competitive for 50 years. What we're focused on is what do we need to do now to keep these two great franchises in Kansas City for the next 50 years. But the burden, if you think about the burden of having both of these teams' leases expire on the same day, when the buildings are 60 years old. I mean, I don't want to throw too many numbers out here, but I would think that the minimum if you're building new stadiums, the minimum amount of capital investment by the time it happens would be, at least $3 billion between the two teams. So that's a big, big burden to put on a region when you think about these. These are public-private partnerships. That's the market, but we want to do this in the right way, and that's why what we're doing right now is talking to all of the various stakeholders in the community, getting feedback, and also working with the chiefs
And that's
to
really,
do this,
like you
to
said.
do this in a way that's sequenced in the right way for the region.
And like you said, it's following you and Kaufman's legacy, right? Which is keep the Royals in Kansas City.
Yeah, I would say that diverting from downtown baseball for a moment, I don't want to get too historical here, but the Kansas City A's left after the 1967 season. We didn't have professional baseball here for 1 year. Ewing Kaufman got the franchise in 1969. And really it became what I think was the most successful expansion franchise in the history of baseball. The team was in the playoffs 7 of the 10 years between 76 to 85. They made 2 World Series appearances and won a world championship. But what he did when you think about, we're the 3rd owner of this franchise. What he did to make sure it stayed here by basically giving the team to the community foundation, it was a remarkable thing. It wasn't good for the team in that we didn't have an engaged owner, it was run by a nonprofit, and we didn't spend any money, but it kept this franchise here. And then when David Glass, at the end of his life, he reached out to us, and I think in the spirit of Ewing Kaufman, selected a group. He didn't give it to us, we had to pay him for it. But he gave us first shot at this, which is really remarkable in sports. Most of the time these things are kind of crazy auctions, and in many cases you don't end up with local ownership. So I really feel like David Glass, even though he wasn't willing to do what it took maybe to move baseball downtown, I think in the spirit of Ewing Kaufman, he handed this off to someone that's going to help us do that now.
How many people are in that ownership group now?
Well, a bunch of them are here. I think we have, Brooks in here, I think we have like 16 ownership, really investors, but some of those are groups. But we have 16 lead investors in the group, but there's a lot more than that. A lot of them have, like the Dunn family has, they're one of our largest investors, and they've got a number of people in that group, as an example.
So one last question from me, and then I want to open it up to questions, and we're going to eat because I know some of you have to get back.
I want to know who has to go back to work today. Probably Esther.
So my last question is, so yesterday Mr. Sherman and I talked, and I said, can you give me an exclusive? We're not on the air anymore. It's just we're all friends. And so do you have anything you can tell us that's new? I'll rephrase it. Do you have anything new that might not have been shared publicly?
I don't know that I do. I'm looking over at Sharita. I would just say that I think I don't know that this is exclusive, but I think this is an incredibly special opportunity for the city. Look, we there's a number of reasons that we invested in this club, and you asked about our ownership group. We all want to make money long term. We don't want to, but this is a group that, and when David Glass called me in March of 2019, said he wanted to sell the team, and I had to work out some stuff with my partners in Cleveland and the commissioner of baseball. But when I started to put together this group, some of the first people I called the Dunns, the Haverdys, the Locktons, others in the room. And the group came together incredibly quickly. And it turned out to be really a great and diverse set of business and civic leaders. And these are people that, based upon the requirement, the size of the check that you had to write, these are people that have built businesses and made tough decisions and been tough negotiators, but 100% of them allocated value to what this franchise means to the community. I don't think that's breaking news by any means, but this is a very, very special group that, and I would say that we bought the team. You know, sometimes your timing's good. We bought the team and we had a global pandemic about 3 weeks later.
Right.
And, but if you believe in, it's an economic club, if you believe in regression to the mean or the law of averages, we got a hell of a run ahead of us.
Maybe.
But I would just say that you know, during that period of time, I was both inspired and impressed by the organization and this group, and that the sets of decisions that we made with the long-term view in mind. You know, anytime you're in a situation that's tough like this, and I talk to Esther about this all the time, you know, and we have to call on the Fed, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, we've had to call on the Fed maybe more often than we need when you think about the financial crisis, a global pandemic. We had a fragile public company in 2001 when 9/11 hit, but in all of those situations, you know, you don't want to overreact, but you don't want to underreact. You want to be decisive but thoughtful, and the main thing is not to panic. And I had a group of people that had just made a big investment, and there wasn't a panic. There wasn't nobody panicked. And now I think, you know, we're on the threshold. Now, what I'm really thinking about is beating the Chicago White Sox today.
Right.
If you really want to know, those are kind of that's the short-term focus. But we think we got something really special here. And what this group wants to do, obviously, we want to put a good product on the field and compete for a championship on behalf of our fans. We'd love to have another parade, but those are things that are really hard to do. But at the end of the day, we want to do something special for Kansas City that goes way beyond baseball.
Right.
My question is there any possibility, or is it wishful thinking, to explore some sort of by-state tax that would support a new stadium downtown, similar to what was done for Union Station?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I am not a political scientist by any means, but when I think about the burden of these stadiums, you know, being this stadium when it's really a regional asset, at least to this point, being financed just by Jackson County, it would make sense that this type of asset would be something that a bi-state. But when I talk to people that are political scientists and advise us on strategy, that's a pretty complicated, I'd say it's a long putt at best, I think. And so I think it's something that we still want to understand more about, but I don't get a lot of positive feedback on that. But we'll see how that goes. Is that fair, Adam? Adam, yeah.
Who else? Anybody else have a question? Anyone?
Everybody's ready to eat.
I think so.
So any baseball advice? So that with an economic club, I don't have to tell anybody. I don't have to answer when are we going to bring Bobby Witt Jr. up anymore. But anything about baseball that you'd want to? There we go.
This is about baseball, but also about the ownership group. I'm a lifelong Royals fan, but I've lived a lot of years until recently in New York City, and was used to the New York Yankees with their owner, Steinbrenner, making more headlines than the players. And now Steve Cohen and the Mets making a lot of headlines. You have immense respect in this community, John, you and your group. Do you see yourself and your group as active owners in terms of input during the year about what's going on the field? I know you've got a great group under you. What is your role in making sure the Royals win every year?
Well, I think, you know, in this business, you know, the baseball operations department, we do need to rely on the people that have made a career out of this. All of us come from different backgrounds. We're successful in business. We can certainly bring some things to the table. I think initially it's probably more on the business side because of our relative backgrounds, but we're certainly very engaged with our baseball people. But at the end of the day, I think you got to hire good people. You got to agree on the result. You got to hold them accountable. and then try to help them be successful. As an owner, when I think about day to day, you got to let these guys run the operation and then again hold them accountable. But certainly when there's money to be spent, when there's money to be allocated, and Major League Payroll, when you think about this business, the revenue. I mean, there's certainly local things you can do, but you got national revenues. Really, when the season starts, season tickets, your partnership business, your media rights. It's relatively fixed. On-field performance will drive kind of game day revenues, but Major League Payroll is really the thing that moves the needle, and it's both in terms of your overall expenses, but it's also, but in a small market like this, another thing interestingly about baseball, it's a very, I have an entrepreneurial background. Sports it's a very entrepreneurial business because you constantly have to reinvent yourself. But baseball is really even more entrepreneurial. You just talked about the Yankees and the Mets. We're the only club, we're the only league without a salary cap, without a true revenue. So the revenue disparity between clubs is pretty immense. That's not an excuse for anything. In fact, we take that. I think this club's demonstrated they compete. But for a small market team, you got to evaluate well, you got to select well, you got to develop well, and then when you have a nucleus to build on, you go out and spend the money to kind of put the final pieces of the puzzle together to compete at a high level.
Well, I think we're going to go ahead and start eating. I want to thank you very, very much
Thank
for
you, Ann.
joining us and enlightening us on, what you plan to do in the future. So I know that he's going to stick around and eat with us. So if you have more questions, I know he'd love to talk to you. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
really
it.